Hello YouTube. As you can see, I am not in Ohio anymore. I am back in my apartment here in New York. It is, what day is it today? Friday, January 6th, and I've been home from Ohio for about 4 or 5 days. I've just been kind of taking the first few days I've been back to unpack everything. I had to figure out some stuff with my laptop and just kind of like getting back into being here in New York after 1, being gone for 2 months, 2, performing for 2 months, and 3, like my life back here in New York. But now I wanted to sit down and kind of do like a wrap up of everything, October to December, of performing in White Christmas in Ohio at La Commedia, and just kind of, yeah, talk about the experience. So White Christmas at La Commedia was my first show in about 4 years. The last show I performed in was Beauty and the Beast at White Plains Performing Arts Center, which ended in January of 2019, and then did that audition season, did pretty good with a lot of things, with getting callbacks and rounds of callbacks for shows. And then 2020 happened. Same kind of thing. It was starting off really solid with auditions. I felt really, really good about a couple different auditions that I was making it through multiple rounds of callbacks for, and then shutdowns happened and theater basically stopped. And before the pandemic happened, I hadn't booked anything. So it was still like, okay, I've made a lot of progress, but I don't have any prospective jobs for when theater reopens. So for the year of 2021, filming lots of self-tapes here in the apartment, hoping I would book something. Didn't end up booking anything, and I was getting quite a bit sad about it. And then 2022 happened, still filming lots of self-tapes, going through rounds of callbacks for things like that, all throughout 2021 and 2022. And then when I booked this job, I was just like, finally, a job. I finally booked something, and it was from a pretty simple video that I sent over. It was my dance reel and a singing video that I sent, and I booked from there, which I was just so thrilled about. So for me, it was just so exciting to finally book a job after 2 years of filming self-tapes and feeling like nothing was happening, and then finally booking a job. I just loved getting to be back in a rehearsal room, back with a cast, back with a group of people putting a show together. It was just so exciting for me to go into that first rehearsal and be like, oh my God, I'm here again, finally. And something I was very worried about on the first few days of rehearsal was if I was going to forget what it was like to be in a rehearsal room and like how to be in a rehearsal room. But I just like immediately jumped right back into everything with my comfort zone of it. And it was just so nice to feel like it was a good cast of people that I felt very supported with. I just felt really solid being back in a room with a group of people who are so talented and so awesome to be around. The rehearsal process was about 2.5 weeks. I think it's one of the quickest rehearsal processes that I've had for a show. And even though it was October, like mid-October to the end of October, it literally feels like it was like a year ago, which is crazy. Even like a month into the run of the performances, it felt like it was such a long time ago. And yeah, right now I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe that rehearsals happened that quickly and that we put up the show that quickly and then ran for 74 performances, which is the most I've ever done of a single show. The only other contract I've done that's been a similar length to this one was working at Peterborough Players, but since that was a summer stock, that's like you rehearse a show for a week, you perform it for like maybe 2 weeks, and then it's done, you switch into the next thing, or you're doing like 3 different things at once. So for me, this was like, okay, I'm putting all of my energy into one show, performing it 8 to 10 times a week for 2 months straight. There's a lot of stamina that needs to be built up with that, with keeping the show fresh, finding new ways to explore different parts of the character, keeping up the energy to do the show for that long. And I really enjoyed that aspect of it because it was a new challenge for me. It's something I'd never done before. I'd never performed 10 shows in a week, which was basically every performance week from the beginning of November to December 30th. So for me, it was really challenging and a really good way to prove to myself that I could do it. I was playing the role of Rhoda in the show, and I just loved playing her. Rhoda is a silly showgirl type, which is a lot of times what I get cast as because they're like featured ensemble and they do a lot of dancing. I feel like that's kind of where my character type falls into, and there's so much that you can do with it. Usually for a showgirl type character in a show, it's 2 to 3 girls that are all kind of within that same realm of things. So for White Christmas, it's Rita and Rhoda, and Rita, who was played by Ellie in the show, who was my kind of partner in crime throughout everything. She was so much fun to work with. I loved getting to kind of explore our characters, figure out different things as the show kept going, trying out new comedic bits. As we felt like things weren't working for the audience, we were like, okay, let's try something different, physical comedy, like the way we delivered a line. It was really fun to have somebody who was like so excited about the process as well and wanted to try new things every single time. A lot of people say that a show is made by the people who are in the cast, and I completely agree with that. I feel like I've gotten pretty lucky with a lot of the cast that I've worked with, that I've gelled really well with everybody and felt like I've had a good connection with pretty much everybody in the cast, and this one was no different. The cast of the show I was so excited to work with, and they were just so amazing throughout the entire process. I feel like everybody was so supportive of everybody throughout the entire run. I'm definitely gonna miss this group of people, one, because we spent so much time together in the housing, doing the shows, being with each other, but just from all the little jokes and things that we also came up with backstage, offstage, outside of the show, all the little things that we would do together. I feel like I'm gonna miss that the most of it. There's a local bar right near the theater called The Barrel that we would go to after Sunday performances and get half off of drinks, and they have something called chicken chunks, which is literally just boneless chicken wings, but for some reason it was like our favorite thing to eat. Every time after these performances on Sundays, we'd be like, we have to go to The Barrel, we have to go get barbecue chicken chunks with ranch, we have to just sit at this long table at the bar and just calm down from the show, eat our chicken chunks, have some drinks, and then have a good time until we close down the bar at 2 a.m. We also played so many games together. We played a lot of Clue, a lot of Werewolf, a lot of Dutch Blitz, which is a card game that I'd never heard of until being with this cast of people, and I'm really gonna miss that aspect of it as well, because I feel like that's what helped us also bond a lot more and get closer together, by just playing games, figuring out each other's tells in these different games, figuring out how we could lie and werewolf to different people, how we worked with different people and different games we were playing. I feel like I'm really gonna miss the people in the cast the most from this experience. Alongside all of that with everybody, I also loved developing all these little bits on stage and off stage with everybody. I feel like with each different person in the cast, I had a different routine of bits I would do on stage or off stage with them that I was like, okay, we did it once, we have to do it every single show. So with one of the guys in the cast, we always did something called dapping each other up, which is just like a handshake that we would do as he moved a set piece past me while I was waiting for an entrance. We did it the first, I think, tech rehearsal, and we were like, well, now we have to do it every single show, and every single show we'd do that. And then there was like other bits of like me and Liv, who played Betty, we would always go over a specific set of lyrics together before the show started in the first scene. It was just something we had to do, that we were like, okay, we've done it once, we have to keep doing it. On stage, there were different things that I would do with different people. I would have different bits with different actors on stage that I was like, well, I have to do this every time, or if I do it, it has to be like to that person always. If it's slightly different, it's just something that has to be with them, because it feels like it has to be that same routine on stage. I just love kind of developing those like habits and bits on and off stage, because it makes the experience feel more visceral to me, and it makes it feel like, okay, I have a routine set when I'm on stage and off stage. This is how I go throughout the entire show. It should feel the same in that kind of way every time. And I just think that's such an important thing to create and craft with the cast, because it helps you bond also. Something that came with White Christmas that I didn't expect at all and was shocked and surprised and pleased with myself about was the challenge of understudying, specifically understudying the role of Betty Haynes, which is one of the female leads of the show. I don't know if I ever really talked about this on my YouTube channel, but there was a point sometime this past year where I was thinking about songs I wanted to sing in auditions and roles that I wanted to think about for myself in the future, and I realized that a lot of the roles that I've been like seen a lot for before the pandemic were roles that I didn't feel like I totally fit anymore. Case in type, my character type of the silly showgirl. Those parts are really fun, but I also want to do more than that. I want to be like doing more serious roles, more like leading lady roles. And this show of White Christmas, this production of White Christmas, brought me that opportunity to understudy a lead role and go on for it. And it was just awesome. I'd always kind of been told throughout high school and college theater that I would mostly just be a dancer and wouldn't really be thought of for the opportunities for a leading role unless it was a dance specific role or a dance specific show. So the fact that I got the opportunity to do it at a theater that I'd auditioned for in the past, they definitely just knew me as a dancer. In the show, I was cast in a dance role, in particular, a featured ensemble role that got to be funny and have some lines, but then I got the opportunity to do a serious leading lady role that didn't dance throughout the entire show and do well with it and be proud of myself for it and sing a lot on stage, which I don't typically get to do. And it was just great. I'd never understudied a role before. A lot of stuff I'd done that was like an understudy was swinging, dance captioning. So I kind of knew everybody's parts on stage. But for understudying, I was like, okay, I have one role that I'm focusing on. I have a lot of lines I need to learn. Lots of songs I need to learn how to sing as well, and I get to focus on this character and really understand her and her motives and how she changes throughout the entire show, her connections with the other characters on stage. And for me, I felt like it was a really good challenge in that way of bringing back stuff that I haven't really thought about since acting classes in college, because a lot of the stuff I've been doing is like dance roles, and there's some bits to that as well, but not as much as in like a meaty leading role. And getting to do that was really fun for me, and I really enjoyed that challenge of it. The understudy assignments for the show didn't really happen until halfway through the second week of the rehearsal process. The only people who knew ahead of time when they were cast what they were understudying were the people who were understudying Phil and the understudying Judy, because there's a lot of dancing that they needed to pay attention to in the rehearsal process. When we got the email from the stage manager with our schedule for the next day alongside understudy assignments, I'd been taking a nap, so I like sleepily opened my email and then did this. Oh my God, I have to learn the entire show. Because at that point I was just focusing on my stuff as Rhoda. We didn't have a dance captain assigned yet, and then because I have dance captain experience, I was like ready the next day to be like, hey, I'd love to be the dance captain, and see if they were even thinking of that as an option, and then was like, nope, never mind. Now I'm understudying the lead role and I have to learn all of this material. I had to really put in the work to feel ready to be an understudy that could go on at any time, and I feel like I kind of employed my dance captain brain and went, okay, that switch is flipped. Now we know what we're doing for Rhoda. We have that locked away in one part of our brain. Now let's focus on Betty and focus on everything with that. So I would do a weekly review every time we had our day off before the next week of shows. I would do a weekly review of the Betty material. When I was learning it initially, I got into those last few rehearsals, was recording things on my phone as much as I could, just keep listening to it, highlighting things, going through so much stuff in my script, working with Liv, who was playing Betty in the show, who was just such an incredible person to work with as my first time understudying a lead role. She literally came up to me the day after understudy assignments were given out and she said, hey, if you want to go through the show with me, let's do it. After rehearsals today, we'll go through it in the living room of the housing and I'll walk you through all of the staging, because I know you haven't been at rehearsals to watch it, which was just such a great way for me to feel comfortable in everything and to talk with her about the character, about everything she was doing for the character, start to understand what I wanted to do with the character if I was going to go on at any point. We'll get to that later. But yeah, I just felt very supported in this bit of the process, because I was very nervous about it at first and didn't really know what to think about going on for a lead role, understudying a lead role, something I'd never done before. But I felt very supported by the people who are in the roles and the people in the cast to feel comfortable and confident in doing it. I really wanted the role to feel like I could just switch into it as quickly as I needed to, depending on the situation for it. And with all the weekly reviews I was doing for it, going over my lines all the time for it, reviewing the songs, listening to the music all the time, I felt very prepared for when I did get the opportunity to go on. So now getting to go on for the lead role, that was so exciting and so exhilarating for me as somebody who never got the opportunities to do that before this. It was incredible. It all happened very quickly as well. Like I kind of mentioned in my I got to go on for the lead role video that I made, Liv ended up getting COVID over Thanksgiving, and it was just the process of waiting for tests to be cleared and figured out that took a while for me to find out that I was going on. I found out at like 6:45 that evening, like, because at the theater there's a whole dinner buffet that happens before the show. I found out I was going on when everybody was called to go eat the buffet of the cast. Liv told me earlier on in the day that she had a positive home test but had to go get tests at the doctor to be cleared for that. It was just a lot of communication of waiting for those tests to come through, for the theater to make their decision, for her to make her decision, that I was kind of like, okay. At a certain point in the morning, I was planning and ready to go on. At a certain point in the afternoon of that day, I was thinking I wasn't going to be going on. And then I literally am sitting in the dressing room about to go line up to go eat the buffet, and I get told, hey, Tori, you need to go talk to the stage manager. And I knew exactly what it meant. And I was surprised by how mentally ready I was for it. I didn't like have a panic attack or freak out like I thought I would have. When they were like, Tori, you're going on, you have to go figure out costumes and go review lines. And as it was all happening, I was like, okay, trying to keep it calm, and I was definitely calmer than I thought it was going to be. I didn't have any costumes for the role. The only thing I had was one dress that I wore for Rhoda, my Rhoda track in the show. Everything else was beautiful dresses that Liv was wearing all the time, and specifically like the Blue Sisters dress. Like, I didn't have an understudy costume for any of this because they weren't planning for any understudies to have to go on, and all of my costumes for Rhoda were like tiny bikinis and shorts and things like that, which is not the character of Betty at all. So it was a lot of having to try to figure out what costumes needed to be fit for me. The costumer had to come in at the last minute, take all of the costumes out so they could all fit me, and make sure that I knew my lines. One of the guys in the cast, David, was so nice, and he just said, okay, I'm gonna come in here while you're trying on all these costumes and we're just gonna go through all of the lines. And we went, okay, great, and just reviewed all the lines as I did everything. I felt very solid about everything. I was just wanted to make sure that I felt confident about the songs, and specifically the big song in the second act, Love You Didn't Do Right By Me. That song definitely scared me a bit because it's a big ballad. I don't usually sing a lot of ballads, but it was a song that I was like, I know I have to get right. This song in particular has a lot of like big emotion for it because it's a big turning point in the show for the character of Betty, that I was like, I want to get it right. And I just happened to that week, because we were on our Thanksgiving break, I had a voice lesson with my voice teacher virtually and said, I'd love to work on this song because I'm a little bit scared of it and don't know if I'll need it in my back pocket, but I'd love to work on it. And then ended up needing to use everything that I worked in my voice lesson on that song. And it went so much better than I thought it would have. I was definitely scared about it, but once I got through it the first night, I was like, okay, I can do this song. And it sounds strong and good and solid, and it doesn't feel as scary as I thought it would, which for me was the best part of it. I really liked getting to play a serious role that didn't dance much in the show. The only real dance number for Betty in the show is Sisters, and it's not like kick your leg choreography. It's like very kind of stand still, waving a fan around choreography. So for me, I loved getting the opportunity and the chance to explore a character type that I feel like I can play, but don't get the opportunity to do very often. But now I feel like I can do it, and I hope to get that opportunity more in the future. That Lock Media gave me the opportunity to do it. I was just very thrilled with that opportunity. I felt very supported by the entire cast the entire time, that it just felt like a great chance for my confidence and my work as an actor. And now I have a nice leading role on my resume. It was also so great to get to work more with Andy and Allison, who are playing Bob Wallace and Judy Haynes. The two of them were kind of like Betty's main foils, of Bob being her love interest and Judy being her sister. So I got to work with Allison a bit more on the stuff for Sisters and say, okay, how are you doing this normally with the choreography? What should I be paying attention to from the bits that I learned in rehearsal in our scenes together as sisters? What do I need to pay attention to for the relationship that you've created with Liv, who normally plays the role? What am I going to do differently that kind of still brings that same essence but brings my take on the role? And kind of similarly for Andy with Bob as well, being like, okay, well, they are romantic love interest on stage. What do I need to bring to that as somebody who's never played a romantic lead in a show? How do I bring my own personal experiences to the role? How do I take that to a different level, work with that in a different way than Liv was doing on stage? Bring my character choices to the anger that she has towards him at a certain point, towards their fights, towards their making up. They're both such great scene partners to work with. They're both so supportive when I was jumping into everything in the Understudy weekend. So talented and so professional that I just really enjoyed getting the opportunity to work with them a lot more. The whole Understudy weekend brought like a whole new life into the show, because it was like, okay, there's two different people and two different things on stage, and we have to readjust staging. So for my understudy, Emily, who went on for Rhoda, she was also the dance captain in the show. She kind of had to rearrange things from there. Me going on for Betty, I had to figure out my different things on stage. It just felt like it kind of like flipped all of us on our head, and we're like, okay, something new was happening for this weekend of shows. Felt like the audience really liked everything that we all did on stage in our different tracks that we were doing. Something that Lock Media does is a meet and greet after the show, where the cast kind of stands outside in the lobby of the theater while people were leaving, and the audience had really great reactions to me as Betty, which was very exciting for me. So it was nice to hear directly after the performance that people liked it, and people that I've never met before liked what I did on stage, when I kind of was like, I don't know if any of this is good. By the end of the weekend, which was 4 shows of doing the role of Betty, I felt like I definitely found my groove doing it, but didn't get to do it again. I was hoping I would have gotten another opportunity, but obviously Liv got better, which was fantastic for her, and she was so great in the role anyway. I feel like I learned a lot just from watching her on stage before and after doing the role, that I was like, oh, okay, there's so many different layers to the character and different layers to how we both played the role, that I would have loved another opportunity to do it again. But let's put that in the universe that another theater will give me the opportunity to do Betty Haynes at some point. And then jumping back into my normal track of Rhoda after the Understudy weekend was so much fun, because I got to go back to my normal track of doing all of my dance stuff that I didn't get to do for the 4 days, which I love getting to do in the show, and doing all my bits on stage that I was normally doing throughout the show, but also bringing kind of like the insight of going on for the lead role into that, of finding new ways of keeping the material fresh, of doing different things with Rhoda that I could take from doing Betty on stage. It was fun to kind of take that like more serious character and kind of bring that into the silliness and the stupidity of Rhoda. I definitely had a really great time at Lock Media working there. Like I said before, I'd auditioned for them in the past, and it used to be like auditions in New York for them were impossible to get into, and I wrote down in my audition journal from the last time I auditioned for them back in, I think, the beginning of 2020 for one of their productions that got canceled and moved around because of the pandemic. It was like a huge audition that was like really hard to get into, and I was like number 58 on the list, but then danced for them, got kept, and got to sing for them. So they liked me then. They liked me again to hire me. I love to work at La Comedia again just to kind of see what it's like doing a different show there. I love getting to go back to theaters and seeing what the experience is like when I've grown a little bit or done something a little bit different, or just a different show in general. I'm just so glad I got to perform again. And now just back to the grind of auditioning and self-tapes and all of that. While I was in Ohio, I was filming some self-tapes while I was there. I was able to rent a dance studio that was across the street from the theater and film, I think, like 10 to 12 different self-tapes while I was there. So putting in the universe that one of those will work out, as well as from any of the other self-tapes that I will be filming here in the future, any other submissions that I do. I'm just glad I got to be on stage again. I hope you enjoyed this kind of wrap-up thoughts dump of my 2 months in Ohio of performing in White Christmas. I had a really great time. I hope I get to perform in that show again. I hope I get to perform at that theater, La Comedia, again, and I hope I just get to do another show soon. Putting it into the universe that we book another job very, very soon. Universe, please listen. I want to work again. I want to dance and sing and perform again. If you have any other questions about anything else with my time doing White Christmas, La Comedia, the show, anything like that, leave those in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching DFTBA, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.